Hello and welcome, I'm the Legendary PokéMaster, and today we are talking about Charizard being a controversial Pokemon. Usually with controversial Pokemon, I talk about a Pokemon that could either be good or bad based on its traits. However, Charizard is controversial for a different reason. It might be kind of overrated. So today we will investigate this claim and see whether or not it is true. So without further ado, let's start. So before we start, we need to determine what exactly overrated means and what we're comparing Charizard to. I mean, if Charizard was the only Pokemon, of course it's overrated. Then it would also be underrated and intermiddle something rated. So let's find this out. Overrated means to have a higher opinion of something than deserved according to the only real dictionary, the one I scroll over to because it's convenient. The main thing that we'll be comparing Charizard to is the other starters because that's the main category that it falls under when people say, "Oh, it's overrated." They say stuff like, "Oh, you should have picked Blastoise," or, "Oh, you should have picked Meganium." So with that context, let's take a fair analytical look at Charizard. Looking at its stats, they're pretty well balanced and it doesn't fall behind too much in anything but defenses. The base stat total is 534, which is actually pretty good in comparison with other third stage evolutions. I mean, my favorite Pokemon, Porygon Z, only has 1 point more in base stat total and has less balanced stats. Plus, Porygon Z is a lot harder to train than Charizard, like a lot of other similar caliber third stages. Especially ones from Kanto, actually. Those defenses are kind of a detractor though, because the special defense being only in the 70s puts it at serious vulnerability to its weaknesses of electric and water, both of which specialize in, you guessed it, special attacks. Quite a few other starters have precautions for their main weaknesses, but Charizard is pretty bold and doesn't care. So in terms of stats, for the balancing and highness, but taking into account the losses it has with special defense, Charizard probably has average proficiency in this category when compared to other fully evolved starters. However, the place where I think Charizard really shines is its typing, as opposed to, well, some other starter evolutions. Charizard has a good typing that helps it out a lot, giving it 6 resistances and 1 immunity compared to only 3 weaknesses. This typing also unlocks a large variation of moves for Charizard, with fire type specializing in special attacks for the most part, and flying type specializing in the opposite. It can learn strong moves like Fire Blast, Flare Blitz, Fly, Sky Drop, and Flamethrower, and its dragon-like appearance lets it learn a bunch of dragon-type moves as well. My personal favorite being Dragon Rush. Charizard also has Mega Evolutions, it being one of only a few starters to have that. It, however, is the only starter to have 2 Mega Evolutions, each being useful for a different thing. With Mega Charizard Y, you get something that takes advantage of the regular Charizard's strengths and boosts them even more, being better for moves it learns by default. With the X version, you get honestly a much cooler looking Pokemon. It has a new typing to work with, which could be even more of an asset than Y's typing if used correctly. With all of these factors combined, Charizard is a powerful Pokemon and probably one of the more powerful starters in general. But the question still remains, is it overrated? Well, yes and no. Charizard is a great Pokemon, and if it had been left alone by the Pokemon Company, this debate would probably not exist. However, Charizard is constantly put out there in the limelight, a lot more than other Pokemon similar to it, or even stronger than it. Here's what I mean. It's a mascot of a game, one of Ash's few fully evolved Pokemon, the only starter to receive 2 Mega Evolutions, and one of only a few Pokemon Ash has ever brought back later in the anime. It even had its own little spiel in the anime about being lazy, something that you would never see today, or at least in the X and Y anime. I can't judge the Sun and Moon one because I missed a bunch. All of these marketing, buffing, and canonical events all helped boost Charizard into the popularity it has today. And without that, it would probably be at the level of something like Dragonite in terms of recognizability and usage. Not to say Dragonite isn't used much, in fact it's a very widely used Pokemon, but way more people probably either use or recognize Charizard. This leaving of other Pokemon in the dust kind of made Charizard overrated in terms of popularity and appeal, but otherwise there's not much to complain about with the Pokemon. But those are only my thoughts on the subject, and there are always 2 sides to a conversation, so what do you think? Is Charizard overrated, and why do you side with the side that you choose? Please leave a comment down below. You can also subscribe to see videos like this twice a week. Regardless, I've triggered many people, and I will see you in the next video.